In the year 2033, Seoul, at 8 o'clock last night, another victim lost their life due to a bug attack. Regarding this situation, the Institute recently released a statement saying that they did not have enough butterflies to resolve the situation. This is where the protagonist of this story, Maywa, enters. 15 years old, his sister Hina questions if he is going to school so early. Maywa tells her that he woke up very early as well, despite not having worked either. It has been a while since she had some time off, so she should rest as much as she wants. She agrees and tells him to do well at school, smiling warmly as he leaves. However, she tells him to wait and inquires if he loves going to school. He smiles joyously and tells her that, of course, he likes it a lot. Maywa had lost his memories from a crash and had been kept at home for a long time. He felt so far away from everyone else. But now that he is going to school, the thoughts of being an ordinary kid make him really happy. She looks at him with a solemn expression, falling into silence before holding his hand and telling him that he has to be careful of that thing. Maywa seems a bit agitated and tells her that he knows. There's no need to worry, though. As he walks along the roadside with other students ahead of him, he feels alive. Now that he is with the other kids, he will attend school like all the others, and he's going to make a lot of friends. Besides that, from now on, he wants to be a person that many people love, no matter where he is. He wants to be someone whom others always want nearby. So far, this life that he barely managed to obtain, he will never ruin it. In the next scene, we see him in class as the teacher discusses history. Today, he talks about when the bugs first appeared in 2020, 13 years ago, in the heart of New York City, in the United States. The first bug made its appearance to the world. Eventually, public opinion compelled the government to take action against the bugs, but no matter how many weapons they fired at them, the bugs wouldn't die. In fact, they were perfectly fine despite the countless attacks. Then one day, from the biggest scientific institute in the world, URIBS, emerged a developed chemical weapon that would be able to destroy the bugs. Afterwards, they dropped the bomb on the bugs. However, nobody could have dreamed that it would cause a major catastrophe. Against all expectations, the bugs actually didn't die but rather broke apart into countless bits and pieces that dispersed throughout the world. Furthermore, the chemicals used in the attack became a syphilitic toxic gas, eventually spreading across the globe. Due to this event, most of the world's population disappeared in a single morning. However, the city of Seoul is alive and well due to the fact that one of the researchers at the Caribs Institute was concerned about the side effects the weapon would cause and developed a shield to block the toxic gases, keeping them safe. However, that wasn't the end of the catastrophe. The bugs that had spread throughout the world after the attack began moving toward Seoul. The bugs that absorbed the toxic gas turned violent and began attacking humans. Ordinary weaponry didn't work during their moment of hopelessness. However, something emerged that could save their lives. Suddenly, a boy rushed in with unbelievable news. There are butterflies outside. All the kids stand up in surprise, and Maywa looks at him, startled. But the teacher tells them to sit back down, as they are in the middle of class. Suddenly, a giant bug cracks the window, trying to get in. They all cover themselves, trying to protect one another from the shattering glass. The bug falls to the ground, and they all look at it, marveling at its size. A girl points at something, telling them all to look. Before them is a girl with a sight in her hand, dressed all in white. As she moves, a swarm of black butterflies follows her. She is Jaeyoung Shin Jaeyoung. Upon seeing the bug, she and the creature clash. It is a swift victory for her as she slices it in two. When the students see this, they cheer, praising her skill. In the past, the bugs gathered near Seoul and began taking people's lives, but at that moment, like a miracle, a girl possessing a beautiful pair of butterfly wings and the strength to fight against the bugs appeared out of the blue. Nobody knew where this mysterious girl had come from or how she had arrived, but with the strength that came from her blood, she removed the untouchable bugs in the blink of an eye. From that day onwards, she was revered as the butterfly goddess. However, after many years of fighting battles against the bugs, she suffered a grave wound and died. At that moment, Caribs Institute immediately began planning and testing ways to create the next butterfly goddess. They took her blood, the source of her strength, and injected it into an ordinary human. They had finally created a human with the butterfly goddess's strength. The testing was a great success, and the children created from these experiments are now called butterfly children. One of these children is Jaeyoung, Shin Jaeyoung. He looked at her a bit annoyed, as he was quite jealous of her. In the next scene, at home in the middle of the night, his sister is informed that Maywa went crazy again. She concludes that there must have been an incident at school, and the kids who were in Maywa's grasp still haven't woken up yet. They must have seen Maywa use his strength. They have to act quickly before the news reaches the ears of the institute. So, she meets someone in an alleyway and begs for help. The person gives her 3 shots, telling her that as long as she has these, she can manipulate their memories again. However, it only works on short-term memories. The mysterious figure warns her that she might be able to get away with this again, but it will be extremely difficult if a similar situation occurs once more. There's only so many times that this person can help her. She shakes her head and exclaims that she will keep that in mind. In a hospital room, where a boy lies injured, she holds a syringe and stares at it. Then, she begins to inject the boy, doing what is necessary. 5 years later, Maywa is now working a job at 20 years old. He is working on a painting when he hears the doorbell ring. A group of teens enters, and he greets them. One of the boys ponders what he should eat. However, his friend comments that they all taste terrible, as these are just things that the institute made. Just 20 years ago, the institute had claimed the stores were filled with tasty food. The girl begins to mention the bugs. Apparently, there had been a report of someone running into bugs in this neighborhood a few days ago. But it wasn't just any bug. It was apparently a parasitic bug with human features, which made one's skin crawl. They wondered how to distinguish between humans and parasites, as they are identical to humans since they steal their bodies. The girl explains that the ordinary behaviors and actions of the person are different. One of the boys hands Maywa a snack to be priced, but Maywa tells him that they would cost 3,500 won. Suddenly, the boy glares at him and comments, "Isn't that you, Maywa?" The other boy agrees, declaring it is indeed Maywa. They find him annoying, reminding him that because of a little scratch he received in middle school, he ended the lives of half the kids in his own class. One of the boys claims that Maywa has managed to live very well despite being expelled, questioning if Maywa has gone insane at the sight of blood. At that moment, he grabs Maywa by the collar and inquires if he could be a bug since there have been a lot of bugs that attack humans lately, and they can disguise themselves as perfectly normal people. The boy becomes really furious and declares that Maywa is the one who took the lives of his friends. His friend tells him to calm down, suggesting that Maywa might come for him next. The boy throws the package of chips towards Maywa and leaves, declaring, "How am I supposed to eat that when a guy like him touched it? It makes my skin crawl." Maywa watches him leave while feeling helpless and angry. Later, Maywa walks alone, reminiscing about the bugs and reflecting on what the guy had said to him. He looks at his hand, noticing the marks on it. He wonders how long he has been restricted by these marks, and how long it has been since he's been bound by blood, always potentially injuring himself with the risk of bleeding. He has always carried electronics instead of paper textbooks, a pencil case, and has avoided any kind of activity that might injure him. He's had to steer clear of anything involving sharp tools since that incident in middle school. He can never see blood. He has to always live in a state of caution and fear, no matter how difficult life may be because of that. But even with all of that, he's still a bug to everyone else. He knows he will always have Hina by his side. He remembers the drawing he had made, knowing that she'll hate it if she sees it. When he arrives home and slowly reaches for the door handle, suddenly the door opens, revealing Hina, who kindly welcomes him home. He inquires why she came home so early. He thought she wouldn't be here or that she might be planning to go somewhere. She ignores his question and tells him that she bought some cake but completely forgot to buy drinks. She shows him the cake to celebrate his birthday. Maywa comments that there are barely any places that sell cake, so how did she manage to get it? She declares that she went pretty far out to get it for this day. After all, it's his birthday. He questions if today is his birthday. She questions whether he has forgotten about his own birthday. That said, she takes the tablet he had from him and asks if he has drawn something after a long while. When she takes it, Maywa begins making excuses, claiming he was just a little bored, so he did it. For a moment, she is silent, staring at the drawing. Maywa thinks he is in trouble. He had just said before that if she sees it, she'd chill. Suddenly, she tells him that it's super cool. Dread fills Maywa's mind. She declares that she likes the color red, although she doesn't know much about drawing. He can't believe what she said. She walks away and tells him to sit down, saying she will quickly run out to buy something to drink. However, he grabs her hand and tells her to wait a minute. She questions what's wrong, and with a stone-cold expression, he exclaims no, he will go out and get it. He tells her to wait, as it has been dangerous around here of late, and he had heard some bad news before. In a scary voice, she questions what he means by bad news. Her creepy voice sends chills down his spine. At that moment, the words he had heard not too long ago fill his mind. The bugs that take human form behave and act differently than the original person. He declares that she really hates the color red. Upon hearing these words, she smiles, but her eyes are serious. He explains that ever since he was young, she always said that whenever she sees the color red, she thinks of blood, and that she feels queasy whenever she sees it. He also reminds her that she said she wanted to remove anything that could possibly make him remember that day, so he wants to know who she really is. At this moment, she transforms into her bug form. She smiles and comments that unfortunately, she got caught. At that very moment, he realizes he messed up. He is flung to the door, hitting his back against it. She tells him that it doesn't matter anymore, because she has completely taken over this human. She had to work hard to get this precious body. That's why she takes a lot of little fries like him, because she will have to use him as nourishment. The creature comments that he should have just run away the moment he realized what she was. Taking her advice, he immediately starts running at full speed. He ponders how long she had been under the bug's control. However, why did it have to be her? That's not important right now. For now, he has to get away no matter what. However, with her elongated arms, she wraps around his neck. She looks into his eyes as she slowly takes away his breath. She explains that his sister told him to always listen to people, or did she not? Now she gives him an order: die. That's enough, boys! Exclaims a voice. Don't you think that the subject is completely different? Immediately, her arm is sliced off. The creature screams in a creepy tone like a bug. It was louder as Jae-young appeared. She declared that a bug shouldn't be talking about people but rather about bugs, as there's no chance that anybody would actually listen to bugs. Jae-young glares at her and questions, "Am I wrong, you disgusting bug?" At that moment, we see a cut on Maywa's cheek, and blood begins to slowly fall from it. Maywa falls to the ground and stares at the creature that aches in pain. With unsteady eyes, the creature questions why the butterflies can't leave them alone. She won't forgive them for this. She's going to destroy them all. She dashes at Jae-young and exclaims, "You're dead!" However, Jae-young only looks at her and comments that she's stupid. Jae-young gracefully dodges the creature's strike. Immediately, she gets behind the creature, which turns around, but as that happens, it is sliced in two. As it dies, it looks at Maywa. The creature falls to the ground dead, and he sees it all, even as it begins to morph into its bug form. Jae-young steps on it, and informs Sarah that she got rid of the bug. On the other line, someone declares that they need to scan the bioactivity of the bug real quick. Since there's no activity from the bug, it's time to clean it up. The mission is over and she did a good job. It seems she has done it overtime. The voice tells her to hurry back so they can grab a beer together. Jae-young tells the person on the other line that she needs to check up on the victim real quick. As she walks towards Maywa, she notices him staring at his bleeding hand and breathing heavily. She realizes that he's traumatized. She leans towards him and explains that it's a horrible thing that has happened to him, but that wasn't his sister. His sister has likely been dead for months already. That thing was just a bug. That's why it's best to forget about this quickly. She extends her hand to help him up, but he is still shaking. Perhaps he has been knocked in the head by the bug. It's quite annoying. The person on the other side questions what's wrong, as she comes inside and sees that the guy is in a weird state. She slightly smirks and questions whether he actually sustained some sort of brain injury. "You look perfectly fine on the outside," she angrily declares. "Stop making a fuss and get up." That's when she notices his hand and questions why there's so much blood coming from it. What's more important is when did he get such an injury? Seeing that the situation is serious, she tells the person on the other line to get an ambulance immediately. She tries to get his attention, telling him to say something. Suddenly, a red butterfly appears, which surprises her, causing her to be immobile for a few moments. Even the person on the other line is stunned. "Red butterflies?" He grabs her by the neck and easily overpowers her, telling her that he cannot bleed. She ponders how this person possesses the strength of butterflies. Unfortunately, she couldn't overpower him. Suddenly, she gathered all her strength and kicked him off her. He falls a few feet away as she begins to cough, but she holds onto her side. She shouts, "I saved your life, and you respond by strangling me? Are you insane?" However, he does not respond and merely attacks her again with his powers. She realizes that the kick wouldn't be enough to make him sane again. She smiles, knowing that she has no choice but to use force to bring him back. It will be very painful. She uses the back of her scythe to strike him on the head, causing him to fall unconscious on the ground. The voice on the other side tells her that what she did was wrong, that she took a boy's life, but she clarifies that she didn't end his life. "What's more important? Did you see what happened?" Dr. Seo Yujin orders her to bring that child to the garden immediately, declaring that the child is the one they had lost, the fourth butterfly. Maywa has a dream. His hand is red, his clothes are dirty, and he is trying to remember. In front of him lay his classmates. That's when he hears a voice, and she appears before him. He shouts that he can't remember what he did. He just suddenly started bleeding and tried to get a hold of himself, but it all went wrong. He begs for reassurance that this isn't his fault, and she tells him to calm down, but she declares that it's all his fault. She always told him to be careful with drawing blood. She explains that he is different from everyone else. That's why he can't be too close to other people, and he can never risk getting upset. He must always sit quietly and make sure he doesn't get the smallest of scratches. He has to live with utmost caution. "But how long do I have to live like that?" he questions. "From now on until he dies." She tells him not to worry, as he has her. "But what if you disappear? What do I do?" She looks at him with pity and he questions why he only has to live like that. Is it because of that accident that happened a while ago at school? He screams, having a mental breakdown, declaring that his biggest fear is being all alone in the world. She holds his shoulder and apologizes, saying it's too much of a demand to make on him. However, she knows that because of his selfish ways, all of his friends became like this, a part of the soil. "Also, it's your fault for what happened to me, the reason I became this way." Suddenly, he wakes up, sweating profusely and breathing heavily. It seems he is in a hospital. He cannot remember anything that happened, but before him is lavish greenery under the sun. Outside, he realizes that this isn't a hospital, it's more of a garden. That's when someone appears and questions how his head feels and whether it hurts, adding that she did hit him pretty hard. She introduces herself as Sarah Lopez, 27 years old. She's a researcher as well as an operator with the butterflies. Sarah comments that she knows his name is Maywa, and he wonders how she knows that. He declares that he will become familiar with the place soon and welcomes him to the last laboratory on Earth, the very place that protects the last city of Earth, the garden. As he walks around the area, he marvels at its beauty. It's difficult to find a place with this many plants. The place he is currently in is the first laboratory, and at the center of the area is the central laboratory, which is the first lab. To the right is the second laboratory. The central garden houses the body of the butterfly goddess and also contains the garden's head, Eugen's office. However, he can't enter the central garden without permission, so it seems unlikely that he will be able to go there. But if he walks straight past the central garden, he will make his way to the second laboratory. Maywa notices that the researchers are looking at him, and Sarah begs him to understand that it is in the middle of the news that a new butterfly has been found. Everybody is fidgeting with curiosity about him. They previously believed that they could only obtain 3 butterflies, but he suddenly showed up out of the blue, surprising everyone, including her. Beside the garden, Maywa questions if he is one of the children of the butterfly who repels the bugs and protects the people. She tells him he's right. It's normal that it would be hard for him to believe since he's always lived a normal life. He declares that it doesn't make sense. The blood of the children of the butterfly each has a uniquely distinctive color, but he only has normal red blood. If he is really a butterfly, then how did he end up outside away from the garden? All butterflies are born in the garden and live their lives here. Also, his sister Hina knew about his true identity yet still chose to live with him. Sarah places a hand on his shoulder and tells him that everything may seem surreal, but it's all true. After the tests are performed, they know he is the 4th butterfly. However, he is the only one with red blood, which is why it was difficult to track him down. Earlier, he mentioned that he doesn't remember anything up until his 13th birthday, but he was informed that he was in a car crash when he was younger. Jae-young explains that nobody here was informed about the existence of the 4th butterfly. Even worse, even the other butterflies didn't have a clue about him either until now. Only a handful of researchers in the garden knew about his existence, but 7 years ago, one of the researchers in the garden stopped them in the back with the 4th child, and she escaped and simply vanished. That researcher who betrayed them is Hina, or as he knows her, his sister. Upon hearing this, his eyes opened wide. That doesn't make sense, he thinks. Jae-young elaborates that she erased his memories for various reasons. After escaping, it's easy enough to get memory-erasing medications as a researcher in the garden, and after clearing her identity, she probably went on to live her life as a normal person. Jae-young questions if he really thought that she, alongside the butterflies, could run from the garden. It's remarkable that she even avoided the garden's eye for the first 7 years. He has been tricked by his sister this entire time. Sarah questions if she can't be nicer, as Maywa is still in shock from everything. Maywa, with a defeated expression, questions if that was how it was. He wonders why she ran away with him, and why she even kept a watchful eye on him. Sarah reveals that she thinks Hina tried to save him from living the life of a butterfly. There's still a lot of talk about the human rights of butterflies right now. From another perspective, the order given to those young children to do some horrendous things is troubling. She might have wanted him to just live his life as a normal person. Maywa wonders if she could have wanted to spare him from this place, but despite that, he has come back here again. This means that right now, he is really all alone. His sister was everything to him. Sarah tells him not to worry about it. He has them now. It will be difficult to swallow everything that has been thrown at him all at once, and everything might seem pretty unfamiliar right now. They will do their utmost to ensure that he settles in here as a butterfly. From now on, this place will be his new home. Maywa questions if, when he becomes like the other butterflies and eliminates bugs, and if he saves people's lives, could he also receive love from others? Upon hearing this, Sarah is stunned and nervously tells him that yes, he can. Once he becomes a butterfly, he will show up on a lot of broadcasts. After all, he will become a hero. Upon hearing this, Jae-young becomes very angry. She approaches him with rage in her heart, but Sarah holds her back and questions what's wrong. Jae-young glares at her and tells her to get out of the way or she'll get hit as well. In an instant, she uses all her strength to hit Maywa in the face. Maywa falls to the ground, sliding away. Sarah rushes towards him and asks if he's all right. Sarah turns around and questions what Jae-young is doing. Is she a bully? How could she just hit someone like that? Ignoring her, Jae-young grabs Maywa by his collar and lifts him up. She glares at him and tells him to listen. However, Maywa remains cold, his face a poker mask. She tells him that he might be excited because he wants to gain fame and popularity among his people, but if he ever loses control of his strength or himself, just like what happened a little while ago, none of them have any plans to take care of a nuisance like him. They are desperate right now, Everybody is shaking in fear of the possibility that everything might collapse again. The number of bugs increases each day, with more and more people being taken over by bugs just like his sister. And since they are all out of the butterfly goddess's blood at this point, they can't even make any more butterflies. They brought him here because their grasp is on straws. They were afraid that he'd be spooked by the idea of saving the world so suddenly, or that he may even run away from his responsibilities. They were thinking of ways to grab onto him. However, it's a relief that, on the contrary, he is actually quite eager to get to work. But why is she so angry? It's because he has to remember the weight of her words. If he wants to receive love in his new home and work to pay for his own meals, he cannot be someone who thinks that this job is a simple club. Otherwise, he would get kicked out or die like a dog before the first letter of his name even reaches the ears of the people. She lets him go and walks away. Sarah apologizes on her behalf. Jaeyoung is actually a good person, but she has a fiery personality. Maywa questions if it's true, and Sarah tells him that yes, if he is unfit to be a combat butterfly, even if he is one, they have no choice but to give up on him. However, that's too rash. He should not concern himself about that right now. The first thing he has to do is worry about settling in. Maywa gets up and declares that he'll work hard, so he wants guidance from her. Before he earns his keep, he needs to know what kind of place his home is like. Maywa smiles happily, hopeful for a new start. Seeing this, she tells him of course she will show him around the rest of the place. The place they arrive at is where they personally oversee and offer support in butterfly admissions. The situational room is beside this building, which is the dorm hallway where the children of the butterfly live, the butterfly garden. This is where he will be spending his days. He thinks that this place is amazing. Unfortunately, there are no other butterflies inside at the moment, since both of them are on missions elsewhere. Maywa questions what he should do now. She explains that they will be introducing him tomorrow to everyone in the garden, and introducing him to the rest of the world will probably be scheduled for next week. Also, there's no chance of him being put on a mission until his weapon is finished. Everybody uses a weapon forged from their own blood. Since blood doesn't have any effective attacking capabilities in its liquid state, it is made in a way so that its shape has combat abilities. It is different for him. She believes that this may still be hard to digest, but she assures him that she will always be here for him if he needs help or answers. She reveals that although Jaeyoung spoke to him harshly, she is relieved she couldn't have dreamed of the possibility that he'd be so quick to understand. She was thinking about what she'd have to do if he ran away out of fear. Perhaps she'd have to tie him up and drag him all the way back here. She even thought about using a tranquilizer gun and surveillance planes. Meanwhile, Jaeyoung spoke far too quickly. She's not a bad person. She has a very strong sense of responsibility. Maywa assures her that he doesn't hate her. At that moment, Sarah gives him a bunch of clothes, a badge, and a phone. She also put her contact number in his phone. His room location is written on a card, so all he needs to do is look for it. She then left it because she had a lot of work to do. Upon entering the building, he looks to see if anyone is there. However, inside the building is a mess. He opens the door to his room, and thankfully, the room is clean. He looks at the ceiling and thinks that it's strange, a thing he's only been able to see on TV, a paradise that seems to exist in another world. To think that he would be in such a place as a butterfly, this doesn't even seem real. If he wakes up, will everything have been a dream? The blood that he had detested so much is, in reality, the hope that might save his world. He clenches his fist and looks at his arm. That's when she now appears in his mind, and the words of Jaeyoung also come to his mind, that he's been fooled by his lovely sister his entire life. He knows she has always been anxious by herself, and kept everything away from him. Just what kind of mindset did she have all this time to stay with him? Wasn't it too much to stay with him then? Did she want to quit? Wasn't she at least a little happy? He has so many questions, but now he can't ask any of them. Tears streamed down his face as he cried. He really misses Hina. Suddenly, his door slowly opens, and blue butterflies begin to flutter around him. A blonde-haired guy enters. he comments a pitiful caterpillar has entered his garden. In the next scene, the person in charge of the garden declares that today is an important day. Today is the date they found their lost butterfly. They lost him to an accident that nobody could have expected, but luckily, that child has found his way back to the open arms of the garden. The child standing before them now is the child they had lost, the fourth butterfly, Maywa. Maywa looks away, not meeting their gazes. That's when he sees Sarah cheering him on. She tells him not to hurt and to fight on, and beside her is Jaeyoung, who is furious. After the director finishes her speech, he sits on a bench all alone. The director approaches him and tells him that he did well. It must have been quite a burden since it was his first time in such a position. She praises him, saying he did much better than she expected. However, all he did was stand there. With a smile on her face, she declares that everyone is happy and glad that he's come back alive. She knows he will be of great strength to them from now on. He bows his head, contemplating the idea of great strength, and explains that he doesn't know if he'll do well, as he hasn't known anything aside from his ordinary life until now. He doesn't know if he'll be able to help. She places a hand on his shoulder and tells him he will. She walks away and tells him to take it easy, as he has worked hard today, so he must rest. Suddenly, Sarah jumps on him and hugs him. Soon after, other professors arrive and tell her to be careful so she might not trip. Sarah introduces the other researchers who work with her at the garrison. These are the people who will support him alongside her from now on. They gather around him, amazed to meet the fourth butterfly. They all go to eat and have a fun time. After a while, they leave him to do their work once more. Although Maywa was nervous, he found it amazing. He actually talked and laughed with people other than his sister. It has been so long since he was able to do so that it doesn't feel natural. It's the first time he felt welcomed, so he has to hurry up and be like the others if he wants to continue being loved. Suddenly, he overhears a researcher declaring that they don't trust him. The garden talked about how he was some sort of valuable, powerful force, but they just don't have faith in him. A female researcher had watched the clips, and he doesn't seem to have any control over his strength, and he even started charging at Jaeyoung after losing his rationality. Wouldn't whatever the cause endanger them if they are put on the same missions? To make it worse, none of the other butterflies ever had this problem. On top of that, all of the other butterflies were strictly taught at an early age. They're even more suspicious that he was kept a secret from them. They believe that he either has some sort of extreme side effect or some sort of risk factor with him. They wonder if they could actually accept someone like him as a butterfly. Unfortunately, they don't have a choice since their situation is a bit dire. All they can do is what they're told. Maywa remains leaning next to a tree. Everything they said was true. He doesn't even know much about himself. He doesn't know how he was born or why he's the only one like this. He doesn't know anything, and he wonders what would happen if a similar situation occurred while he was out on a mission. But what if he was attacked now? What would happen if he got scratched by accident? Wouldn't there be a greater chance of being in such a situation in the future? Would he be thrown out if he messed up? What if he had to return to the place he was before? Would he be without Tina, in that empty house without a single soul, and have to leave, avoiding others for the rest of his days, not being able to fit in anywhere, all alone? He thinks about what the director said and believes he can do it. He stands up. There's nowhere for him to return to now, nowhere for him to step back. That's why he needs to be a person that is absolutely needed. Suddenly, a blue mist covers the area, and he is confused. He wonders when such a thick fog began coming here. It's so thick that he can't see his surroundings. That's when a bug begins to appear behind him, slowly making its way toward his neck. He turns around and sees it. He is terrified. He looks at it, asking why it is here. Suddenly, it pierces his stomach. He falls to the ground and clutches his chest, noticing that there is blood. He is slowly losing his mind, but to make it worse, he is dying too. He wants help. He is in danger. That's when he hears a voice saying that it shouldn't hurt at all. It doesn't hurt, really. A person emerges from the fog as if the bug transformed into a human. A handsome boy with blonde hair greets him. With his arrival, the fog disappears, and his wound is completely healed. At that moment, the boy begins laughing hysterically. He questions if Maywa is really scared. It was only a prank. Maywa doesn't understand and declares that the bug was just here a moment ago. The guy tells him to think. Doesn't he know who he is? Maywa reflects on the fog and believes he has seen him on TV before. He smokes his own blood, covers the opponent with smoke, and possesses the power to show them illusions. Seo Hajin of the garden is 21 years old, which means that the bug from earlier was just a hallucination he created. Maywa laughs hysterically on the ground, but then Hajin realizes that his joke went too far. However, it was still fun. It was a successful prank after a really long time, so he's having a lot of fun. No one gets fooled by him these days. This is the first time Maywa has felt like beating a person on their first encounter. The bug and the blood were both realistic, but to think something like this is possible is amazing. Hajin extends his hand toward Maywa and tells him that they should get along since they're both butterflies. He feels that this guy resembles someone. Hajin comments that Maywa loses his rationality when he sees his blood. He apologizes for the video where he was battling Jeong. Maywa apologizes in return. Hajin tells him he should say that to Jeong later, but more importantly, to think that he decided to fight against such a scary kid, that's amazing. If Hajin had done that, he wouldn't have a bone left in his body. Hajin questions if Maywa noticed that he almost got carried away and went berserk because of the fake blood he made. But as soon as the illusion disappeared, he came back to his senses. Maywa asks what about it. Hajin explains that he didn't lose his mind because he was bleeding, but because the moment he realized he was bleeding, which means that the state of going berserk could simply be based on his state of mind. To be more specific, it seems more like a phobia. He must have a huge trauma related to blood in his past, which could be a mental shock. But after hearing that, Maywa realizes he doesn't have any memory from before he was 13. Even if they tried to find what it was, they wouldn't be able to find the cause, not until he found his last memories. Suddenly, Sarah Fly kicks him in the stomach with rage showing on her face. Sarah saw everything on the CCTV. Why is he bullying the child who has just gotten here? Also, it's forbidden to use powers in the garden. Maywa sits and watches everything as Sarah drags Hajin away. All she needs to do is get the report from him. It feels like a huge storm just passed. Maywa looks at his hand and questions why he really has trauma. The next day, Maywa is informed that he needs to undergo training to get used to blood. They'll start the training with his imagination and gradually increase the amount of exposure. This training is all about becoming accustomed to the stimulation. First, about how he feels regarding the color red or the word blood. He feels that he feels nothing. He also often paints with the color red. Maywa can see that Sarah is not sure if this will help. She takes something out of her pocket and hands it to him, something that works as a sedative that they should only use in desperate situations. Also, by having it, it will help him psychologically. A few days have passed, and even though he sometimes feels like he's getting better, he always loses his mind as soon as he sees his own blood. He feels like he's always forgetting something important, but what could that be? Why is he scared of his own blood, even though the sight of someone else's blood doesn't affect him? Was there a traumatic event from when he was young that he doesn't remember? Or maybe he's scared that he'll bleed out of control. Suddenly, he hears a voice declaring, "You are scared, and I am you." He is frozen for a moment, wondering what just happened and what kind of thought he just had. Suddenly, Hajin barges into his room, surprising him. With a smile, Hajin declares that they should play a card game. Maywa turns around and questions him again. After spending a few days here, he has come to the conclusion that all Hajin does is sleep and play games. Later, Maywa ponders how many days of training it has been, thinking that it feels tiring and somewhat pointless. However, he has decided that he will become an important person. He enters the room, declaring that he's home, but just like last time, the room is messy. He begins cleaning up, picking up the cards, snacks, and clothes he threw on the floor. He even covers Hajin with a sheet. He accidentally hits the table, causing it to fall over and hit the mirror with a shudder. That's when he notices that he is bleeding. His heart begins to beat fast, and he starts to lose himself. As his body trembles, he begins searching for the sedative. That's when he hears a voice from the mirror. Remember the fact that I am you. Suddenly, Maywa is brought back to reality, and Hajin questions if he is okay. Maywa feels like someone else's thoughts are pouring into his head. Hajin, with concern on Maywa's arm, comments that he's relieved Maywa is calm right now, but how exactly is he managing to stay calm? Upon realizing this, Maywa is surprised. Hajin questions why he isn't supposed to be panicking while choking someone to death. Surprisingly, nothing is happening. He definitely saw his own blood but is maintaining his calm. Hajin believes that the training has been effective. Researchers aren't just playing around. Maywa smiles, unsure if it's because of the training he has done, but he feels relief since he's gotten better. When he lived with his sister, there were no glass bottles or mirrors. Suddenly, the door opens, revealing Jaeyoung, who sees the two sitting on the floor surrounded by shattered glass. Hajin tells her to come in, prompting her to inquire what is happening. She comments that the place is getting worse over time because he is living there. Hajin declares that it was just a small accident and suggests they all have a beer for their hard work. Sarah walks away, saying she is tired and adds, "Don't disturb me and play amongst yourselves. I'm not here to play your games." She slams the door and leaves. The next day, Maywa wakes up and is greeted by Hajin, who is surprisingly awake. Maywa questions if Hajin is allowed to play so much. Hajin explains that he has no offensive abilities and can't do this alone, so he's supporting with all he's got. Also, Jaeyoung would tell him to get lost if he tried to help, so him doing nothing is actually helping her. Suddenly, they notice Jaeyoung. He wishes her good luck, and she walks away, exhausted, telling him to shut up. Suddenly Maywa grabs her arm and he requests to follow her. She grits her teeth and questions what he said. What exactly can he possibly do to say that he'll come with her? He's just someone who doesn't even have a weapon yet and doesn't know how to control his strength. Does he want to attack her again like last time? She explains that he can watch her through the screen monitor. He won't interfere. He'll only observe how she fights. He explains that he only wants to quickly familiarize himself without any function, since she is the one shouldering the most responsibility right now. He will have to constantly encounter bugs himself and come across blood from here on out, so he wants to permanently see the scene of the attacks. If he's to see another person in a fight, he thinks it will be a lesson for the fear he possesses, so he begs her to allow him to accompany her. It seems to soften her, and she stares at him thoughtfully. Suddenly, Hajin grabs his hand and questions what exactly he is going to do since he doesn't even have his weapon. What if the training he's been receiving all ends in vain? Maywa gets angry at Hajin's endless words, declaring that is exactly the reason why, because he's of no help. He is willing to do anything to become a person who can still help in even the smallest ways. She declares that she understands what he says, so he can follow her. She puts on her coat and thinks this is for the best. She'll just have to stay conscious of her fears for this mission. The door slams, leaving him Hajin all alone. Inside the research lab, Sarah tells them no, Maywa isn't an official butterfly yet. He's a citizen right now. On top of that, he doesn't even have his weapon yet. What will he do if he gets hurt? Given his current state, it's definitely too dangerous for him to use his abilities. However, Jaeyoung declares that it's okay as she can knock him out if needed. Sarah insists no and believes that the director wouldn't approve of it even if she agreed. Suddenly, the director appears on a monitor and approves their request. Upon seeing her, Sarah and Maywa are stunned, but Jaeyoung remains relatively calm. Sarah tries to slap some sense into the director, but she explains that she is granting permission for Maywa to accompany Jaeyoung on this mission. However, they must proceed carefully, as this is just an unofficial arrangement. Sarah explains that she is worried for Maywa, but she can't be helped since the director granted it. Maywa quickly reassures her, telling her not to worry. The mission is as follows: bug appearances have been seen in Sinsadong. There are 4 injured victims, but luckily, no deaths. The citizens have been evacuated. The enemies include one large bug and two medium-sized bugs, 3 bugs in total. Jae-young walks toward them, telling Maywa to stay here and hide. She glares at him and declares that if he interferes, she'll cut him down first. She launches herself into action, and as the bugs see her, they attack all at once. However, she smoothly cuts one down, striking a cool pose. From the side, another bug tries to attack her, but she swiftly slices it in half. When she finishes with that one, she takes a sigh of relief. Maywa thinks she is impressive. She has already taken down 2 of them in an instant. He wonders if he can do the same. Suddenly, a giant bug attacks her out of nowhere. This breaks the cool facade she was holding up, and she becomes relatively scared. But luckily, she defeats it as well. At that moment, Maywa felt something running down his hand. Before him is blood streaming from a bandage. Why is blood coming from his wound? Maybe it was when Hajin grabbed his arm back then. The giant bug stops in its tracks, smelling a strange scent, and it turns toward Maywa, looking in his direction. Meanwhile, Maywa tries to calm himself, reaching into his pocket and taking all the medication, drinking it all at once. Luckily, he calms down quickly. He tries to get back to the fight, but then he hears screeching sounds. Above him is a giant bug staring him down.